What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 17:13 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major updates coming in from the Middle East. I wanted to update you guys on the situation with Iran. We also have some major updates coming in from Eastern Europe. So what you're looking at here is a time lapse of all of the U.S. military transport planes flying to and from the Middle East. You can see dozens and dozens of C-17 Globemasters and aerial refuelers going to Qatar and leaving Qatar over the past several days. So the U.S. is moving a massive amount of military hardware into the Middle East, okay? Probably 100 military transport planes going to Qatar over the last few days. So this is very, very serious. It looks like we are on the cusp of some kind of big event. And some other interesting information that came out yesterday is that a $14 billion on gold was purchased yesterday, and this was disclosed by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They're required to disclose large purchases like that. So somebody bought $14 billion worth of gold. Okay, that is absolutely insane. And the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Rybakov, warned that the consequences of an American strike on Iran's nuclear infrastructure could be catastrophic for the entire region. And the Wall Street Journal, citing an Iranian official, reported that Tehran's response to any U.S. attack will focus on American bases in the Persian Gulf. And apparently the Iranians will target each American soldier. And that's what the Iranian official told the Wall Street Journal. Each American soldier will be an individual target, and they're going to focus their retaliation on American bases in the Persian Gulf. And we have new satellite imagery that came out yesterday from Maxar of Diego Garcia, and it now shows 6 U.S. stealth bombers sitting on the tarmac. Okay, that is a lot of firepower, guys. That's over 30% of our stealth bombers. And the Pentagon said the U.S. Secretary of Defense has ordered additional aerial assets to reinforce the military posture in the Middle East. And also, he ordered that the Harry Truman aircraft carrier will stay in the Middle East indefinitely, while the Carl Vinson aircraft carrier strike group will join the Truman carrier strike group. Okay, and the Carl Vinson is getting close to the Indian Ocean now, so it should be in the Middle East, at least the Arabian Sea, by this weekend. So potentially this weekend there could be some massive campaign against Iran. They're not moving all this equipment for no reason, guys. Look at this. This is insane. Okay, they're sending in air defenses and different things to make sure that all of our bases and our allies and the oil fields in the area are protected. And the commander of U.S. Central Command, General Michael Kurilla, arrived in Israel yesterday, where he has been meeting with senior Israeli defense and military officials regarding tensions with Iran. During the visit, Kurilla will meet with the soldiers and officers attached to the U.S. Army's THAAD battery deployed in southern Israel, which has reportedly downed at least 6 ballistic missiles fired at Israel from Yemen since February. Okay, so that is huge news. The commander of CENTCOM is in Israel right now, meeting with senior defense and military officials in Israel and meeting with the U.S. Army's THAAD battery that's deployed in southern Israel. So that's another sign that the U.S. is preparing for a war with Iran. And NBC News is reporting that the U.S. is now sending 2 more Patriot batteries and at least 1 more THAAD battery to the Middle East. And senior U.S. presidential administration officials believe a Ukraine ceasefire is unlikely in the coming months. U.S. officials, including the president, are increasingly frustrated with Moscow, and the U.S. Secretary of State told Baltic foreign ministers last week that peace in Ukraine remains uncertain and that the U.S. is far from securing a deal. Wow. And today the White House admitted that there won't be a Ukraine ceasefire by Easter. Okay, so no ceasefire anytime soon. Didn't I tell you guys that? I told you that for months, that there's not going to be a peace deal. Okay, Putin has his sights set on Ukraine and the Baltics and other things, and he's not going to stop. Okay. And last night, Russia claimed that they shot down 93 Ukrainian drones. And the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said yesterday that Moscow will not accept U.S. proposals to end Russia's war against Ukraine in their current form. Okay, so Russia has officially rejected the U.S. peace proposal yesterday. And the U.S. president's nominee to be the highest-ranking military officer in the U.S., the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said yesterday that Putin will continue the war into 2025 despite high casualties from continued operations, as he views the conflict as in his favor. And a Russian missile strike targeted the city of Kryvyi Rih in Ukraine today, resulting in the deaths of at least 4 civilians and injuring several others. The attack occurred during daylight hours, affecting a business enterprise and residential areas. Emergency services are currently on the scene, providing assistance to the wounded and managing the aftermath of the strike. And the U.S. Defense Secretary will reportedly skip the next meeting of European countries or countries in general that support Ukraine with weapons and other security assistance. This is the first time that the group is going to meet without a U.S. Defense Secretary attending. Okay, so they have the monthly defense ministers meeting in Germany where all the defense ministers of Europe and other countries meet to discuss how they're going to give weapons to Ukraine. And the U.S. Secretary of Defense will not be attending it for the first time. And the U.S. Treasury reported today that the U.S. is planning to issue new sanctions related to Russia. And today is the 3rd day of China's large-scale military exercises around Taiwan, codenamed Straight Thunder 2025. So these are blockade exercises, and really what we're witnessing now is actually a blockade. Okay, even though they're exercises, they're actually blockading Taiwan right now while they're exercising. Okay, so who knows when this so-called exercise is going to end. This could basically be a blockade. And maybe that's what China's going to do with Taiwan, is that instead of this big invasion like we're thinking they're going to do, instead of invading Taiwan, they're just going to blockade them and maybe launch missiles at them and basically try to degrade their economy, degrade their military. So they don't necessarily have to invade Taiwan. All they have to do is blockade it. Okay, and who's going to break the blockade? Taiwan's not going to be able to break the blockade. The U.S. is the only country that could break a Chinese blockade of Taiwan, and the U.S. may not want to do that for fear of escalation. Okay, you know, you're talking about a U.S. carrier strike group going into Taiwan and breaking a blockade and sinking Chinese warships. You know, that would be a big deal. Okay, that would start a full-blown World War III scenario. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but basically it's a de facto blockade right now, even though it's just an exercise. And yesterday, the Chinese military started long-range live fire exercises as part of Straight Thunder 2025. The exercises focus on subjects of identification and verification, warning and expulsion, and interception and detention, so as to test the troops' capabilities of area regulation and control, joint blockade and control, and precision strikes on key targets. And the Philippines Chief of Staff, Romeo Bronner Jr., instructed his military to start planning for action in case there is an invasion of Taiwan. And we have some intense developments coming out of Gaza. Yesterday, the Israeli Air Force began launching massive strikes on Rafah and Khan Yunis. And the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, said this morning that the Israeli military will start incorporating parts of Gaza into the security buffer zone of Israel. Okay, so basically like a soft occupation or annexation. And the White House is reportedly preparing an estimate of what it would cost the U.S. federal government to control Greenland as a territory, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. And the U.S. president introduced new tariffs today. He introduced a 10% tariff on all imports, a 25% tariff on foreign-made cars, and reciprocal tariffs on all countries, which includes a 20% tariff on the EU, a 34% tariff on China, a 26% tariff on India, a 32% tariff on Taiwan, a 24% tariff on Japan, a 25% tariff on South Korea. So guys, this is huge news, okay? A 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars. Okay, so if you need to buy a car and you're interested in buying a foreign car, you better get it soon. And if you have any parts or anything related to that car, you better get it soon, okay? And a 10% tariff on all imports, okay? And there was a 6.8 magnitude earthquake this morning off the coast of Kyushu, Japan, which prompted a tsunami advisory, but there was no tsunami. And I want to show you guys some interesting flights this afternoon. So here we have a Russian VIP plane flying to Cuba. This is very concerning because we know over the weekend an IRGC plane landed in Cuba. Okay, so I don't know if this is related to Iran's counterattack against the U.S. And these are potentially Russian military advisors that are going to show the Cubans how to launch some of the Russian missiles towards the U.S., but there's a lot of areas in Florida that could potentially be hit, specifically MacDill and Tyndall. Those are some very important U.S. military bases. And we had a large number of P-8 Poseidon sub-hunters cross the Atlantic into Europe and the Middle East last night, which is very strange, very unusual to see this many sub-hunters cross over the Atlantic, and my guess is this is related to Iran and potentially an upcoming war in Europe between Europe and Russia. And then we had several more C-17 military transport planes fly from the U.S. into the Middle East. Here you can see 5 C-17s that went down to Qatar. So this is just absolutely insane. Dozens and dozens of these C-17s flying to the Middle East. And here we have a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter airborne off the coast of Cape Hatteras, off of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. This is extremely concerning because it was doing a search grid. You can see how it was flying back and forth. It was forming a search grid pattern here, and it was flying really low, okay, only just a few thousand feet above sea level, which is very low for a plane. So there must have been something over here that it was looking for, potentially a Russian sub, a Chinese reconnaissance underwater sub or drone. So something is off the coast of the Outer Banks, okay? Very, very concerning. And here we have some footage coming out of Syria showing a massive buildup of Turkish military equipment. So Turkey is moving tanks and all kinds of military hardware into Syria now to defend Syria from Israel. Okay, not that Israel's planning to invade Syria, but Turkey is basically now occupying Syria. Okay, a soft occupation. Okay, this is absolutely insane, and Turkey has a huge military. This is biblical, guys. Okay, we know that Turkey is part of the Ezekiel 38 and 39 prophecy in the Bible, where some kind of large power to the north of Israel comes down and tries to invade Israel, and they form an alliance with Iran and other Muslim countries in the Middle East. A lot of people think it's Russia as the large power, but it could also be Turkey as one of the powers that join up to attack Israel. And now Turkey is building up in Syria. This is extremely serious, guys. And here we have a picture coming out of China showing China launching these long-range rockets, okay, during their blockade or blockade exercise, whatever you want to call it. And then this afternoon, we had this Chinese Air Force recon plane patrolling the Taiwan Strait. And we had a large number of Russian doomsday planes airborne late last night. One of these is Putin's doomsday plane, the Tupolev Tu-14 VPU, and then also the Tupolev Tu-14 SR. Those are airborne command posts for the Russian military. Okay, you can see a bunch of these planes leaving Moscow and other regions of Western Russia. And then here's some more Russian doomsday planes leaving Moscow last night. So it's possible that Russia knows that Trump is about to attack Iran, and they're moving VIPs out of Moscow into bunkers in case there's some kind of an escalation. Maybe Trump told Putin he was going to attack Iran, and they talked about it. And speaking of Russia, the Chinese president Xi Jinping is supposed to visit Russia and meet with Putin this coming month. Okay, so that is a huge development, and we know that Putin just signed an order to draft 160,000 Russians into the Russian army, so they could be preparing for an invasion of the Baltics, guys, okay? And here you can see a British RC-135 rivet joint recon plane patrolling northern Finland near the border of Russia. And then we had a British sub-hunter plane patrolling the Baltic Sea, flying really low in the Baltic Sea, which is very, very concerning. It's looking for Russian subs in the Baltic Sea. And then here you can see massive amounts of NATO reconnaissance in the Baltics and Poland. Again, you can see a Polish reconnaissance plane patrolling the border of Ukraine, a private U.S. reconnaissance plane circling around Kaliningrad all night long, a Swedish reconnaissance plane flying along the borders of the Baltic countries and Belarus and Russia, and then an Estonian recon plane flying really close to the Russian border here. And then we have this NATO aerial refueler flying over northwest Poland. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight in the live stream, so join me in the live stream later on tonight around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'll give you guys a live update. We also had some EAMs this afternoon. They've been unusually quiet the last few weeks. We haven't heard many EAMs, but today there was a tactical EAM and a regular EAM in the afternoon. Okay, but all this radio silence is very suspicious. Okay, the U.S. nuclear forces have hardly been transmitting any nuclear codes for the last week and a half, which means that they're basically in a state of radio silence, okay? So that's actually bad. It's just as bad as when they're transmitting a lot of them back to back. So I'll see you guys later on. Check me out on Patreon. You can watch all these updates with 0 ads, $3 a month, patreon.com/NYPrepper, and I post all my updates over there before I post them to YouTube, so you get priority access. Download my app for free in the Google Play Store. It'll let me notify you when I go live and when there's emergencies. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. Culinary out.